With me to take your calls, I'm going to say was one of Britain's most prolific shoplifters. That's probably fair, isn't it, Cullan?
It is probably fair, yeah.
Basically, if it wasn't bolted down, Cullan Mais was nicking it. For 4 years, you did what? Robbed your way around Britain?
Well, it was actually 6 or 7 years. I was addicted to heroin for 12 years. It was like 6 years that I really found my feet in shoplifting, and it got really out of hand.
So I'm really, really glad that you could come in and talk to us about this, because I do think a lot of my listeners see this every day. They work in shops. They, are having to confront this all the time. Just to talk about the nuts and bolts of actually doing it. So walk us through how you got into it in the first place, and about why you got into it, because you said you were addicted to drugs.
Yeah, I was a heroin addict, heroin and crack cocaine. I got addicted to drugs at a young age. Come from a really good upbringing. My mother and father are still together to this day, and I think that's part of why I'm now out of addiction. Mm-hmm. And with that upbringing brought me, I thought, my morals. So when my addiction got out of hand, I was looking at ways I could make money, and I started off by just kind of blagging people in town. You could say begging, but I called it tapping, pretending I'm lost, trying to get a bus or a train home.
Really?
And, yeah, I'm a lost student trying to get back to my halls. Can you borrow me 20 quid? And then I discovered shoplifting, and to me, everything I did was justification. So it's the most, in the police's eyes, it's the petty crime. It's small prison sentences, if there is a prison sentence. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not hurting anyone. It's a victimless crime. That is how I looked at it, and that is how I got into it.
How long did you do it for?
Like I said, I probably did shoplift at the beginning of my addiction every now and then, but it wasn't every single day when it was 4 years into my addiction.
When did it become every single day?
4 years into my addiction. That was
And it became every single day because you realised how
easy
and profitable?
Yes. I discovered I ended up getting with a girl who had a car. I never drove. And as soon as I had those wheels to venture out of my city, it was like all guns blazing. It's time to go, And
so walk me through then your sort of average day shoplifting to fund your drug habit. You pitch up in town centre at 9:30. Do a few shops.
I would choose an area. It didn't really matter if it was a rough area or a posh area. I would go on Google Maps. I would type in the town, and I would start off in the town centre. I would go into shops that I thought I could easily shoplift from, which actually had valuable stuff that I could sell.
Right.
So if they had security, I wouldn't bother going in. I'm not looking to roll around with security. I don't want to get an extra charge for fighting. If someone actually caught me, I'd say, yeah, you got me, put it down and walk away. So I would look for your cooperative shops, your small shops, your small pharmacies that, your auntie works in. I'm not looking for places where there's loads of security and there's someone at the end of the door, the big security guard. So that's what I would look for. After I'd done the town centre, I would then go on Google Maps and I would type in cooperatives in the area. And normally most of the communities in that town would have a cooperative as well, where I would go in and take the alcohol. They still do have alcohol on the shop floor. So instead of having to go behind a counter trying to get alcohol, it was there on the shop floor for me to take.
And how blatant was the stealing? You would literally walk out with armfuls, or you try to hide it in a jacket or something?
Yeah, look, in my head, it was blatant. In my head, I felt like I had to have some sort of confidence to go in there and feel kind of entitled to do it. And that was driven by my addiction, But I didn't really want to run in and run out. I didn't want to get caught. So there was a bit of an art to it back then. Now it's lawless. Some of the things I see online, I don't even call that shoplifting. I call that shop raiding.
Yeah.
There was a bit of an art to it where I would want to go in, come out without being noticed. I'd take a couple of bottles and I would bring the bottles forward so the shopkeepers wouldn't notice until a couple of days later, and then they'd have to go through hours and hours of CCTV and wouldn't bother looking. So that's how I would do it.
Whereas now, you put a balaclava on and you just go raid it.
It's no different to an armed robbery, in my eyes. I think it's horrendous what's going on.
03456060973 is the number. Cullan Mais is with us, as you've heard, an ex-shoplifter. He's the host of the Central Club podcast. We'll get more into, Cullan, how you've turned your life around and how you come to be sitting in this studio rather than frankly a prison cell. But I'm very keen to get your calls on to Cullan as well, particularly if you've been a victim of shoplifting or you're seeing it happen more and more. Terence is in Hackney. Hiya, Terence.
Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm well, sir. You are a shop owner, I think, so this is sort of up your street.
I am indeed. Yeah. So we've been, we're an independent shop holder. First thing I want to say, it is not a victimless crime. You know, I am a victim. My staff are victims because if we get overburdened with thefts, we go bust. We close down. Everyone loses their job. So it is not victimless in any way, shape or form. And I think that needs to go across to this chap here and everyone else because he came out with that comment. Secondly, one of the questions I was going to ask, I think he's already answered that. I asked what his motivation was. We have, I'm perhaps his worst nightmare because I don't stand by and let it happen. I've arrested myself, several people, got into skirmishes. I have zero tolerance on it. If an addict comes in, anyone comes into my place, they need help, they need money, I give it to them. If they steal off of me, if they steal off of me, I'm a different animal.
Don't say that, you'll have loads coming.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Up to a point. So I'm no fool either.
Terence, in your shop, do you see the same people? Is it the same people coming back again and again?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've often said in the area that I'm in, which is Hackney, if the police rounded up 100 people, the crime level would halve. It's the same people that are doing it. They're in and out of prison, so they're addicts and everything else. There is not a will to solve this on both fronts.
You're raising your head and nodding away, Cullan. You think that's true of your experiences as well?
Oh, 100%. And just to answer back what he said about the victimless crime, obviously I didn't explain this, but I looked at it as a victimless crime back then. I tried to justify any way possible. This is the right thing I'm doing. Since then, I have done my restorative justice. I now do a lot of work to raise awareness on shoplifting, and I know it's not a victimless crime. I used to think, I'm going to the Tesco's, I'm going to the big corporate businesses, they don't matter. But I did do the local the local shopkeepers, the local boutiques, and they were affected, and I have actually met some of them, and, you know, I know now that it's not a victimless crime.
Thanks for your call, Terence. His point about if 100 people were nicked, it would half it. It's the same people again and again and again.
Well, I was a one-man crime wave, so you know the statistics just taking me off the streets was big. So you can imagine in Hackney, which has probably got a big drug problem, he's right.
And how often were you taken off the streets?
I was taken off the streets 11 times. 6 of them were for the arrest. The others were for recalls, missing probation appointments. But there were 6 actual convictions of shoplifting.
And how much time did you spend in prison for that?
I probably, in total of all those sentences, I spent about 3 years behind the door.
Really?
Stolen over £10 million worth of retail, I would say.
10 million quid? So how much could you make a day?
30, 40,000. Retail value, yeah. I'm not making that myself, but when you go to court, you know when the drug dealer gets caught and they go, £2 million worth of street value.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's the same with the retail value. Yeah. So they would come with retail value towards me.
But so of the 30,000, 40,000 a day retail value, how much of that would you actually be able to monetize to sell to make the money?
I would sell at a third of the price. So you could door knock, you know, and go to people for half price, or set up an online Facebook place and sell it for, you know, half price, sometimes even more. But I would go to a fencer who would buy everything in one lump, and we've worked it. Yeah, someone who would just buy everything off you at once, and then he would sell it on. Right,
so sort of middleman, as it almost.
Yeah.
And you could make literally thousands of pounds a day.
Well, I'd walk out with Specsavers, just one Specsavers with like 10 grand's worth of frames. They're £200-300 a frame. I'd walk out with 30 from one Specsavers, and I'd go to 10 Specsavers in a day.
And you'd sell this all onto one bloke?
Yeah, to be honest, with the frames, I used to sell them at £30 a pop.
Right.
So, you know, because obviously he's got to try and find someone who wants these frames, but and they got to put their prescription in and stuff. But, you know, that's what it was.
So you you must have been pretty wealthy.
I was actually...
if you weren't spending it on heroin.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. People used to say to me, Cullan, you'd be a millionaire if you didn't take drugs. And I say, well, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't shoplift if I didn't take drugs.
Yeah.
You know, that's the difference.
But that must be part of the draw for... Or do you think it is part of the draw for a lot of people? Or do you think actually the majority of people doing this are doing it to fund a drug habit, an alcohol habit, something like that?
The shoplifting is an addiction. I'll quickly say that. That came further as well. I actually got addicted to the buzz and the money making. You know, didn't have to ever buy clothes. If I needed washing detergent or something to eat, I'm stealing it, you know? Yeah. But there are professional shoplifters out there who do this for monetary gain. Yeah, there's people who, you know, have paid their mortgage, holidays, cars.
I just, because I get it on text quite a lot, various people saying these are, you know, hard-pressed individuals who are stealing baby milk to feed their child because they haven't got money.
There is that.
And there must be a bit of that. But I don't think that's all of it.
It's not all of it, but it is a big part of it. And I do hear people say it's organised. There is an organised element to every chaotic shoplifter, even the one struggling, because as soon as you go and sell it to someone, they say that's organised. There was always two shoplifters. Yeah, there was the professional shoplifter, and there was the one who was just trying to fund the habit or who was struggling. And I think the cost of living crisis have made that worse. We are now seeing people I would sell the baby milk to at half the price, who can't even afford half the price. They're stealing it themselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So how much sympathy do you think my listeners should have for someone either in your position or in the position you've just described who's going around shoplifting?
Look, I'm not asking for any sympathy. I committed a crime. I rightly so should have been punished. But I truly believe that... I don't think it's one shoe that fits all. You need to understand this, Tom, right? Like, these three types of shoplifters I've just explained to you, the drug user, the professional, and the single mum who's struggling, I think they all need to be dealt with differently. And the shoplifting, the chaotic drug user who's just funding his habit through shoplifting, who that shopkeeper we just spoke to actually knows, he's probably got a relationship with half of them now. He's waiting for them every 4 months to come out of jail because he knows they're going to come back out and do it again. Prison doesn't work. It didn't work for me, and it's not working for anyone else. We need to start looking at prison as a place where you get rehabilitated and not just punished. Otherwise, these people are going to always come back. We need to treat it in the community, I think.